Hey guys, it's Bobby, and this is Financial Story Hour, where we dive into relatable financial stories to empower you to change your own. Now, I wanted to take these first couple of videos to address something that affects every aspect of our financial lives, and that is the idea of cash flow. It's the foundation for achieving our goals and hitting milestones, but it's also the source of a lot of financial problems and woes. Simply put, in my view, cash flow is just the movement of money in and out of our lives. And over the next 4 videos, we're going to be talking about 4 key aspects of cash flow. And those are income, spending, savings, and debt. And we're going to start off today's video talking about income and Joe's slow realization. And with that said, it's story time.
It only took 3 YouTube videos and a TikTok to convince me that all I needed to do was stop buying coffee. I mean, if I didn't spend so much money on frivolous things, I'd be able to pay my bills. But once I stopped getting Starbucks once a week and brought a sandwich I'd made at home for lunch with my friends, I realized that I'd probably saved maybe $50 for the month. It didn't move the needle much. Well, then it must be my car. I mean, who needs a 10-year-old Honda? I could have gone with the 15-year-old Ford, right? They're built tough. Maybe I could have paid it off by now and put that $150 a month back to my pocket, but that still wouldn't solve all my problems. You know, I've never been perfect with money, but I feel like the stress and credit card debt really started when my work cut back on our overtime. I guess I counted on those extra few hours a week. I just don't know if I can cut back enough to make up the difference, and honestly, I don't know if I want to.
If you watch or listen to a lot of other financial content, especially of the Dave Ramsey variety, then you've probably heard of this concept called the latte effect. And that's this idea that you can nickel and dime yourself out of financial success with small luxury buys, like lattes, for instance. Caleb Hammer calls them taquitos, like you'd go in and get at a gas station. And while that's definitely something that we need to assess in our financial story, it's not always the whole picture. Let's look at Joe for a second. It sounds like Joe doesn't really live an extravagant lifestyle. And if he were to cut back all the way to bare bones, rice and beans and rice, then he may scrounge together an extra $200. And that's not nothing. But if you or I did that, we might find $500 for our cash flow. But it's not really sounding like that is Joe's issue. No, I think Joe hit the real problem on the head when he mentioned that his work had cut back his overtime hours. After all, if his base pay is $20 an hour and he usually works 5 hours of overtime a week, then that is $600 right there that is gone from his monthly income. And who knows, I know a lot of people who work more than that in overtime. So what's the point here? Well, when it comes to cash flow, the number that sits at the top is your income. The number that hits your bank account every month. And the sad truth is, there's only so much that you or I can cut back on our expenses. And let's face it, sometimes our frugality can become toxic. You know, I feel like there's a tendency to think that there's some kind of moral superiority in pinching every penny. I want Joe to be able to buy his freaking cup of coffee. And I want him to have a car that doesn't break down on the side of the road. And I don't want him to have to live in that car. Joe needs to address his income problem. And I know that it's not exactly a job seeker market out there right now. So what are some things that Joe can do? First, of course, there's the obvious. He can start a job search for a job that either pays more per hour or offers him the kind of overtime he's used to. Now, as a general rule, I don't love the idea of people working 50 to 60 hours a week just to survive, but it's an option. So what would that mean for Joe? Depending on his field, he could be filling out resumes and sending them all over the place, doing the legwork of networking and trolling job sites. And of course, even as you're applying for these jobs, you don't always know what the pay's going to look like. So it could be a waste of time. So what are his other options? Well, he can also get another part-time job or a side hustle to help compensate. Now, this again involves working more hours, but he is used to those hours. And especially if he's a family man, if he's got a wife and kids that he's trying to support, or he's digging himself into a credit card debt hole, this can help stop the bleed. Now, I know Joe's a hard worker, but I would still like for this to be more of a temporary solution rather than long term. So what else? Another thing Joe could do is approach his current employer. Now, I never recommend anyone just burst into their boss's office and demand a raise. I would focus on what value you add to the company. I would go about it strategically, and that's kind of beyond the scope of this channel. I do recommend another channel that I've personally enjoyed called A Life After Layoff if you're looking to switch up your careers or be more strategic with your career. And Brian does a really great job over on that channel. But here are a few things that Joe can consider in this instance. First, you have to honestly assess, are you seen as a good worker? Are you dependable? Are you a go-to guy? Now, that is far from all it takes. But first, honestly assess where you stand within your own company, within your own job sphere. If you think that you are one of those people, you're a top performer, then I would schedule a meeting with your boss. I would schedule it, give him a little bit of heads up, and don't make it about how much money you can get, but make it about what your boss would need to see over the next 6 months, for instance, in order for you to demonstrate your value and earn more compensation. Now, for me, in my main job, I am a medical coder, and right now I am a medical coder 1. So I might approach my boss and ask, okay, over the next 6 months, what do you need to see? What performance indicators or what tasks do I need to learn in order to merit a promotion to a coder 2? And of course, your boss at that point has every right to be like, oh, we don't really have a spot for that, or we don't really know. But I think that if you approach this humbly and honestly, and not from a standpoint of, gee, I'm really hard up right now, I could use more money, I think that they're going to be really willing to look into and give you some guidelines and say, you know what, yeah, if you do X, Y, and Z, or if we keep seeing that, then yeah, you could be on track for a promotion in the next 6 months. And that would be really cool. That is obviously a slower way to go about it. So I would be doing if I was Joe, or if I was coaching Joe, I would be kind of telling him to do a combination of all these things. Probably needs to go ahead and right away get a side hustle going or a part-time job to help stop the bleed. He should probably be sending his resume out to different companies, because especially if you've been at the same company for a long time, maybe you were there through the pandemic and there's been a lot of inflation and a lot of changes in the job market. There may be more out there for you. A job change might actually result in the highest return, should I say, of when it comes to your salary. So I would definitely be searching around different jobs in the career space. And there's nothing wrong with approaching your boss. Again, if you're one of those people, if you are a top performer or you're reliable, you really feel like you do the job well, there's nothing wrong with approaching them and asking for a roadmap to what promotion would look like. So those are the things that I would be doing. Those are the things I would be coaching Joe through if he was my client. And we determined that one of the primary areas he needed to focus on was his income. The bottom line is, cutting back isn't always the sole answer. And if you need help analyzing your financial situation to determine if your income is enough, or maybe it's one of the other areas that you're struggling in, or a combination of them, I would love the chance to talk to you and to help look over your situation. So there's a link in the description below for a free 15-minute conversation with me just to see if we would work well together, and if it's something that interests you and is something that I can help with. We'll honestly talk about that, and then we can talk about next steps and getting into one-on-one coaching. If that's right for you, I would love to hear your story. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, it's never too late to change your story.